For the first time ever, the NBA champions and Larry O'Brien Trophy reside in Oklahoma City, and that is due in major part to the outlier growth and evolution that we saw from Jalen Williams throughout the playoffs. Anyone who grew up or still plays Pokemon to this day is probably familiar with the idea of how the game works. Battling other Pokemon help you gain experience, which leads to leveling up, getting stronger, adding better moves, and eventually evolving into a stronger form of the Pokemon that you started your journey with. Dub hasn't skipped any steps, but that hasn't stopped him from running up the stairs in his developmental journey, consistently adding, sharpening, refining, and improving aspects of his game, body, skill set, and mind throughout all of his experiences. Year 3 was a big one for Dub before the playoffs even began, making his first ever All-Star game, All-Defensive Team, and All-NBA team at only 23 years old. Dub joined Kobe Bryant, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Dwayne Wade, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Anthony Davis, Paul George, Joel Embiid, Dwight Howard, and Ben Simmons as the only player since 2000 to make an All-Defense team and an All-NBA team in the same year at 23 years old or younger. And if you chop that list down to only players below 6'10", it's just Kobe, Wade, PG-13, and JDub to hit all of those marks. Also, yes, I know Dub is 24 now, but we're talking about their age 23 season. This was a massive leap in year 3 that most players can only dream of, but JDub is no stranger to crazy growth spurts. In fact, between his senior year of high school and the start of his freshman season at Santa Clara, Dub shot up rapidly, going from 5'10" as a sophomore in high school to 6'3" by the time he was off to college, and finally one more pre-NBA growth spurt pushed him to become the 6'6" versatile monster that we see today. On his unique path to stardom, he retained all of his guard-like skills while conforming them to his now NBA wing-sized frame, resulting in the rising star that we see today. And to bring it back to the Pokemon opener, you might even say that Dub evolved. But the biggest development that we saw from him this year that helped him break out during this postseason was his mentality. I asked Dub about this big change in his approach during the Thunder's first-round series versus the Grizzlies.
Dub, Mark throughout this series has talked a lot about how you're already a great player, but that doesn't mean you're not going to continue to get even better and better, because a lot of guys don't even reach the level that you're at right now. You've really improved, it seeming like in this playoff series. Is there anything that you can point to throughout this season that you feel like has really grown in sort of your game that's allowed for this to happen?
My mentality, just like every single game, trying to like stay in like an aggressive mindset. When you have really good teammates and players, it's easy to like float and kind of just let the game go. So just trying to be like really aggressive for the whole entire game and make people have to guard me every single possession.
And for that mentality, is that like a different approach as you're like leading into the game? Is it different guys talking to you? What do you think exactly goes into, I guess, flipping that switch?
I think first it stems from the coaches and like my teammates. They have enough confidence in me for me to kind of go out there and be more aggressive. But I think too, just like starting early, like trying to be aggressive from, like I said, from jump ball to when the final horn is. And I think that's been like the biggest development of my game. And that doesn't mean like go jacking a bunch of shots, but just kind of like be ready to go right away.
But that's enough talking for now. Let's dive into the film and check out just how Jalen Williams evolved into a star during this year's playoffs. Since coming into the NBA, JDub has been a pretty consistently high-level rim pressure player for the Thunder, being able to knife his way into the paint and forcing opposing defenses into helping. It was clear very early that this was not the same Dub from the Mavs series with the way that he was attacking and at times straight up bullying different Grizzlies defenders on these drives. And that trend stretched throughout the Thunder's entire championship run. It felt like all of the pieces of the puzzle were finally coming together for him at the exact right time in the way that Thunder fans had always hoped it would.
What is he doing?
He's beginning to believe.
Moving guys out of the way like he was playing bumper cars and using his body to shield defenders away to create clear paths to the basket. This time around, Dub was not the player reacting to physicality and instead forcing opponents to adapt to the force that he was playing with. JDub often has played the role of the undersized defender in OKC's super small ball lineups, but he flipped this on its head, attacking downhill like a shark smelling blood in the water anytime a small guard got matched up with him. He also routinely put defenders in jail on these drives as well, often off of a pick and roll action with Isaiah Hartenstein. Dub would get downhill and hold his defender behind him on his hip, aka putting him in jail. This is effective because it more or less takes his defender out of the play and forces the big to choose between taking Hartenstein as he drives to the rim or staying with Dub in the ball. And putting guys in jail wasn't exclusive just to drives for Dub either. He regularly did the same thing in the mid-range, putting defenders on his back hip, giving them a little bump, and freeing himself up for enough space to rise up and knock down these mid-range jumpers. He also loved to mix in some step backs to create some separation on his mid-range looks as well. Leveraging his ability to threaten defenses as a driver, defenders are forced to prioritize closing off driving lanes and trying to stay in front of him, and anytime that a defender did do that and overplayed their hand, Dub would snatch the ball back for a step back jumper while his defender tried to stop their momentum in an attempt to get a decent contest on him. He's also got a pretty decent back to the basket game foundation for a guy who grew up playing playing guard. He loves this little bump into a half spin fadeaway from the mid-range as well, using his body to create a bigger shot window and a little fake spin, and then finally the cherry on top, that is the fadeaway that is nearly unblockable when you take into account Dub's athleticism, wingspan, and high release point. And then lastly, to highlight Dub's mid-range game, we have what I am calling superstar buckets. The mid-range isn't dying as much as it's become VIP only for the stars, but these are far from any normal makes. These buckets are the kind that give you a peek into what sort of offensive nuclear weapon Dub could become if he hits his ceiling. These are the shots that are going to be available in the playoffs, and Dub, the tough shot taker and tough shot maker, just put daggers into opposing teams with some of these buckets. Since coming into the NBA, Jalen Williams has been an above average to elite three-point shooter. Being able to stretch the floor in the modern NBA has gone from being a luxury to a vital skill. Dub, as a knockdown guy on catch and shoots, is a perfect complement to Gilgeous-Alexander's drive-heavy approach. But what impressed me most about him from three in this year's playoffs was Dub's ability to make threes off the dribble. This could be one of, if not the last piece in the puzzle for him to truly master offensively if he ever reaches the level of being truly unguardable. He has already proven to be a high-level three-level scorer, being able to put points on the board at the rim, from the mid-range, and from three. But if he's able to become super efficient on these pull-up threes, then he becomes a super-duper three-level scoring threat as a guy who is self-sufficient and being able to get to any of those spots on his own without needing anyone to set him up. Another big piece of the offensive pie in becoming a star is playmaking. After getting his feet wet last year in his first ever playoff run, you could really tell just how much more comfortable Dub was this postseason. He was confident and super decisive on his passes. No need to overthink things. If a teammate's open for a good shot, hit him. None of that massaging the ball nonsense, just keep it moving. And that is super important in the playoffs, where defensive rotations are sharper and tighter than ever, to be able to think on your feet and make quick split-second decisions on these passes to create open looks for his teammates. And just because he was making quick passes, that doesn't mean he was rushing things. Dub also did a great job of knowing when to slow it down and wait for things to open up around him, seeing what the defense is giving him, acting accordingly, and being patient enough to wait for stuff to unravel around him. Because of his scoring gravity I touched on earlier, defenses have to commit a lot of attention and bodies to Dub whenever he has the ball, which plays right into his talents to draw help just far away enough from their initial man before he fires the ball to the perimeter to his teammates for these open looks. Switching sides of the ball, guys don't accidentally make all defensive teams without being major disruptors on the other end. Poking and prodding at opposing ball handlers, looking for any sign of weakness, Dub constantly got into other guys' dribbles and snatched the ball right from them before they even knew what hit him. He full on weaponizes his enormous wingspan to disrupt the dribbles and passing lanes whenever he's on the floor. And even when he isn't guarding the ball, that doesn't mean opponents are safe from steals. Dub does a great job, like a lot of other Thunder players, at just identifying when to double, help, collapse, and overall just attack lazy passes and unsuspecting ball handlers. He has great hands, the aforementioned gigantic wingspan, anticipation skills, and should essentially be a no-fly zone for anyone trying to pass the ball in his general direction unless they're hoping to see him pick it off and score on the other end. He also did his part in chipping in as a shot blocker. He's not in the least bit a traditional rim protector, but he does a great job of helping out as a team defender, plugging up rotational gaps, and getting the occasional chase down block. This is all once again in due major part to his 7'2" wingspan, which allows him to scale up and guard bigger players while not having to sacrifice the ability to contest or even block their shots. Seemingly every aspect of Dub's unique all-around game all came together in the perfect storm that was his Game 5 of the NBA Finals masterpiece. Dub was a man possessed that night, becoming the 5th youngest player ever to put up 40 points in an NBA Finals game, only trailing Magic Johnson, Rick Barry, Russell Westbrook, and Jerry West. This was Dub's magnum opus of a playoff performance when the Thunder desperately needed it the most. It wasn't a guaranteed series loss if OKC didn't win that game, but it would have been an unbelievable uphill battle to go into the Hornets' nest that would be a Pacers Game 6 at Gainsbridge Fieldhouse, where they could clinch a championship, win that game on the road, and then come home and win a brutal Game 7. But luckily, we don't have to think too hard about that hypothetical, thanks in major part due to Jalen Williams' playoff evolution, which was capped off by a Game 5 performance that will go down in the Oklahoma sports history books.
I got 28 or 29 shots in my hand throughout the playoffs, and I just was like, that can't be for nothing. Like, we have to win.
I think it's important also to give some context into what he was dealing with on the Thunder's championship run. During his exit interview, Sam Presti mentioned that Dub would be getting surgery on his right wrist. That announcement later led to Dub himself talking about his injury on his YouTube channel, where he pulled the curtain back on everything that was going on. We go back to April 9th in Phoenix, Arizona, where Dub and Devin Booker get tied up for a jump ball. Dub pulled his arm out of the scrum and heard a paper-like tearing noise followed by some pain in his right wrist. Later, after getting his wrist checked out, it was discovered that Dub had torn his scapholunate ligament in his right wrist. This ligament is responsible for giving mobility to your wrist to allow it to move up and down and side to side, aka all of the movements you need in your wrist to play basketball, let alone on your shooting wrist. From then on, Dub and OKC's medical staff experimented with a variety of tape jobs on his wrist, timely Novocaine Novocaine shots and changing up his jump shot in order for him to play through this injury. And this was not one of those "it just hurts to play basketball with" types of pain. According to Dub, he had some sleepless nights during the playoffs due to the pain, and tasks as mundane as shaking hands and picking things up, along with his fingers and wrists both swelling up like balloons, made everyday activities difficult. He kept the injury information close to the chest because he didn't want it to be an excuse, and he didn't want other teams knowing about it and attacking, hitting, or slapping at his already compromised wrist. It seemed like the Thunder and Dub may have found a way to manage things for a while during the first round, and then disaster struck again. On a similar play in the Denver series, Dub and Aaron Gordon got tied up and Dub yanked his arms away only to re-aggravate his wrist injury. Dub said that was the most pain he had ever played through in a series that made him grow up as a player and as a man. People talk about the sacrifice it takes to win a championship, and Jalen Williams was the prime example of that for the Thunder in 2025. Playing through a brutal injury and not saying a word about it, I say all of this to point out why his shooting efficiency numbers may have been worse than last year at face value, but when you take this injury into account, it just makes what Dub did all playoffs long, including his 40-point game in the finals, all the more impressive and legendary. But what do you think? In your eyes, did JDub evolve during this year's playoffs? What was your favorite moment from him on the Thunder's title run? How much better do you think he'll be next year with a healthy wrist in this experience? What's your favorite Pokemon? And how much more impressive was Dub in the playoffs now that we know exactly what he was playing through for the Thunder? Let me know down in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed what you saw today, make sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to my channel so I can keep making fun Thunder content like this for all of you, and hit that notifications bell so you never miss out on any of my future uploads. And as always, until next time, thanks for watching.